I was in the hospital after a work injury. My wife didn't visit once. When I called her, she said, Tara and I had been married for 8 years, building what I thought was a solid life together. I worked as a construction foreman, putting in 60-hour weeks to give her and her son Jake the best life possible. Then came that Tuesday when a metal beam broke loose overhead. I woke up in the hospital with both legs shattered, wondering why my wife never showed up. After 10 days of silence, I finally called home. Her words cut deeper than any injury. You are not worth the gas money. Die fast or heal quick. I hung up in shock. Before I tell you how I turned my life around after this betrayal, let me know where you are watching from and tap that subscribe button if you have ever had to rebuild your life from scratch. I met Tara at my friend Kevin's backyard barbecue 9 years ago. She had this infectious laugh that carried across the yard, and I found myself gravitating toward the sound before I even saw her face. When our eyes met, something just clicked. She was beautiful in a natural, unassuming way, with bright green eyes that lit up when she smiled and dark hair that curled around her shoulders. This is Tara, Kevin said. She just moved into the neighborhood with her son. That was how I learned she was a single mother to 7-year-old Jake, a shy boy who stayed close to her side throughout the evening. By the end of the night, Jake was showing me his collection of toy cars, and Tara and I had exchanged phone numbers. Our first date was to a local carnival. I suggested it, thinking Jake might enjoy coming along, and the three of us spent the day riding rides and eating cotton candy. Seeing how good Tara was with her son, how patient and loving, made me fall for her even faster. Within 6 months, I was completely in love with both of them. Jake started calling me Rod instead of Mr. Rod, and Tara and I talked about future plans. By our 1-year anniversary, I proposed, and 3 months later, we were married in a small ceremony with Jake as our ring bearer. Those first few years were genuinely happy. We bought a small house, and I would come home from work to find dinner cooking, and Jake eager to tell me about his day at school. We were a family, the kind I had always wanted. I never finished college, having dropped out in my junior year when my dad got sick. After he passed, I took a job in construction to support my mom. The money was good, especially as I worked my way up to foreman, and I never went back to school. When I met Tara, I was already established in my career, making a solid income that allowed us to live comfortably. As time went on, I worked more overtime, taking every opportunity for extra pay. Jake was growing fast, needing new clothes, sports equipment, and the private school Tara insisted would give him better opportunities than the local public school. I wanted to give them everything, so I put in the hours. 60-hour weeks became normal, sometimes 70. When my grandfather passed away 3 years into our marriage, he left me a modest inheritance. Tara and I used it as a down payment on a bigger house in a better neighborhood with excellent schools. I also encouraged Tara to pursue her dreams, paying for her to attend community college for graphic design. She eventually started a small online business designing logos and websites. I was proud of her ambition, even though her business never quite took off. Our life seemed good on paper. But looking back now, I can see the cracks forming. Tara became more distant, more critical of my long hours, even though those same hours funded our lifestyle. Jake, now a teenager, started pulling away too. I chalked it up to normal adolescence, but there was more to it than that. It was a Thursday morning when everything changed. I arrived at the construction site at 6 a.m., same as every day. We were building a new office complex downtown, and the project was already behind schedule. The general contractor was pushing hard for us to catch up, which meant cutting corners. "Those support cables don't look right," I told the site manager, pointing up at the steel beam being hoisted above the third-floor framing. "They passed inspection yesterday," he said dismissively. "We need to get this section done today." I should have pushed harder. I knew something was off, but I also knew questioning things further would just get me labeled as difficult. So I went back to directing my crew, trying to ignore the nagging feeling in my gut. 3 hours later, I was standing directly under that same beam when I heard a loud snap, followed by shouts of alarm. I looked up just in time to see 3 tons of steel plummeting toward me. I tried to dive out of the way, but I was not fast enough. The beam caught both of my legs, pinning me to the ground. The pain was blinding, immediate, and all-consuming. I heard screaming and realized it was coming from me. Coworkers were running, yelling for help. Someone was on the phone with 911. Another person was telling me to stay still, that help was coming. All I could think about was Tara and Jake, wondering how I would provide for them if I could not walk. The ambulance ride was a blur of sirens and paramedics, asking me questions I could barely focus enough to answer. At the hospital, doctors spoke in urgent tones about crush injuries, multiple compound fractures, and possible amputation. I was rushed into surgery where I would spend the next 6 hours as they worked to save my legs. When I woke up in recovery, the first thing I did was ask a nurse for my phone. I needed to let Tara know what had happened. She did not answer, so I sent a text explaining the accident and that I was in Memorial Hospital. Serious but stable, I wrote, trying not to worry her too much. Both legs broken badly. Might need multiple surgeries. Love you. Her response came an hour later. Cannot come now. Jake has soccer practice. Keep me posted. I was surprised but understood that life does not stop for an emergency. I sent her updates throughout that first day, including news that I would need at least 2 more surgeries and months of physical therapy. Her responses grew shorter. Okay. Got it. We'll try to visit tomorrow. But tomorrow came and went without a visit. So did the next day and the one after that. I kept making excuses for her. Jake must be struggling with the disruption. Her business must need attention. The house is far from the hospital. Gas prices are high. By the end of the first week, a kind nurse named Amanda started asking about my family. No visitors yet, she asked while changing my bandages. My wife is really busy, I said automatically. She is taking care of our teenage son and running a business. She will come when she can. Amanda just nodded, but I could see the concern in her eyes. That night alone in my hospital room, listening to other patients receive visitors, I felt the first real twinge of doubt about my marriage. After 10 days in the hospital with no visits and increasingly cold text responses, I decided to call home. It was evening, around the time we would normally be finishing dinner. The phone rang 4 times before Tara answered. "What do you want, Rod?" Her voice held none of the warmth I remembered. She sounded annoyed, as if I had interrupted something important. "I was just wondering if you and Jake might be able to visit tomorrow," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "The doctors say I am making progress, but it would really help to see you both." The silence on the line lasted so long I thought we had been disconnected. Then Tara spoke, her voice hard and unfamiliar. "Listen, I do not have time for this. The hospital is 45 minutes away, and you are not worth the gas money. Die fast or heal quick, but stop calling for sympathy." I felt like I had been struck. "Tara, what are you talking about? I am your husband. And what kind of husband spends more time at work than with his family? Now I am busy building a life without your controlling wallet. Jake and I are doing just fine." Before I could respond, I heard rustling as the phone changed hands. "Rod." It was Jake, his voice deeper than I remembered, with an edge that had never been there before. "Mom says, we are better without you. We do not miss you." The words hit me like a physical blow. This boy I had helped raise since he was 7, who I had coached in Little League and taught to ride a bike, was now telling me I was unwanted. I hung up without another word, my hand shaking so badly, I dropped the phone on the floor. I lay there staring at the ceiling as hot tears slid down my face. The physical pain in my legs seemed distant compared to the crushing weight on my chest. 8 years of marriage, of building a life together, and this was what it came to. A cold dismissal when I was at my most vulnerable. Nurse Amanda found me like that an hour later when she came to check my vitals. I was not even trying to hide the tears anymore. "Patient in room 302 needs a tissue, and maybe a friendly ear," she said quietly, as if talking to herself. She sat in the chair beside my bed and simply waited while I struggled to compose myself. "My wife," I finally managed to say. "She just told me I am not worth the gas money to visit. And my stepson said they do not miss me." Amanda's face showed shock before settling into a gentle sympathy. "Sometimes crisis shows us who people really are," she said, handing me another tissue. "And sometimes that revelation hurts worse than whatever put you in the hospital." That conversation was the first step in my healing, though I did not know it then. Amanda introduced me to Dr. Patel, my new attending physician, who took a special interest in my case after hearing about my situation. The mind and body are connected in ways we are still discovering, Doctor. Patel told me during his rounds the next day. I have seen patients with strong support systems recover from seemingly impossible injuries, and I have seen patients with minimal injuries fail to thrive because they had no one in their corner. We need to make sure you have support, Mr. Harris. Dr. Patel shared that he had gone through a divorce after his wife left during his medical residency. Sometimes people show you who they are when you are at your weakest, he said. The question is what you do with that information. The hospital social worker Frank came to see me later that day. He connected me with resources I never knew existed and helped me start thinking about practical matters I had been avoiding. Where would I go after discharge? How would I manage financially during recovery? What legal steps should I consider? That night alone in my room, with only the soft beeping of monitors for company, I allowed myself to really look at my McCampsell, to marriage for the first time. The long hours I worked while Tara complained but enjoyed the lifestyle those hours provided. The way Jake had grown increasingly distant over the past year. The friends I had stopped seeing because Tara always had some reason we could not get together with them. I had been a provider, not a partner. And somewhere along the way, providing had become my only value to my family. Now that I could not work, I was worthless to them. The clarity was painful but necessary. The next morning, I tried to access our joint bank accounts from my hospital bed using my phone. My password did not work. After several failed attempts, I called the bank directly. I am sorry, Mr. Harris, but it appears your wife made significant changes to your accounts last week, the customer service representative said. She removed your online access privileges using her power of attorney. Power of attorney I had signed that 2 years ago when we updated our wills, never imagining it would be used like this. Further calls revealed that our joint checking account, which should have contained over $30,000, now held less than $200. Our savings account was completely empty. My latest paycheck and the initial workers' compensation payment had been deposited and immediately withdrawn. My credit card company informed me that my card was maxed out with purchases from electronics stores, high-end clothing retailers, and a reservation at a luxury resort in Cancun. None of these were things I had bought. Then came the calls from bill collectors. Our mortgage was 2 months behind. Utilities were on the verge of disconnection. Jake's private school was calling about unpaid tuition. As I dug deeper, I found a pattern of cash withdrawals over the past 6 months, always just under the amount that would trigger a notification. The betrayal had not begun with my accident. It had been planned, calculated, and executed over a long period. I was just too busy working to notice the signs. My sister Elaine flew in from Seattle when she heard about my accident. Unlike Tara, she came straight from the airport to the hospital, still carrying her luggage. Jesus, Rod, you look awful, she said, dropping her bags and carefully hugging me around all the tubes and bandages. You should see the other guy, I joked weakly. In this case, the other guy was a 3-ton steel beam. Elaine stayed with me all day, bringing real food from outside the hospital and catching me up on her life. She seemed nervous, though fidgeting more than usual, and changing the subject whenever I mentioned Tara. What are you not telling me? I finally asked directly. Elaine sighed, setting down her coffee cup. I did not want to do this while you are laying in a hospital bed, but you deserve to know. I have been hearing things from your neighbors. Susan Jenkins calls me sometimes. Susan lived across the street and had been friendly with Elaine when she visited. Tara has had a man coming to the house regularly for at least the past year, Elaine said, watching my face carefully. Usually when you are at work. Susan said his car is there overnight sometimes. A red Audi. I felt numb as she continued. There is more. Jake told his school counselor about Mom's friend who stays over months ago. The counselor called your house, assuming you knew. Apparently, Tara intercepted the call, and nothing came of it. Piece by piece, my world collapsed around me. The overtime I worked to give them a better life had given Tara the freedom to build a life that did not include me. The son I loved had been turned against me by whatever narrative she had created. The money I earned had funded not just our household but likely her affair as well. What am I going to do? I asked more to myself than to Elaine. My sister took my hand, her grip firm and reassuring. First, you are going to get better. Then you are going to get even, not out of vengeance, but out of self-respect. And I am going to help you. Just as I was processing the emotional devastation, my physical condition took a turn for the worse. An infection developed in my right leg, the one that had sustained the most severe, crushing damage. My temperature spiked to 103, and doctors spoke in hushed tones outside my door about the possibility of amputation. We need to be aggressive with this infection, doctor. Patel told me, his face grave. Your emotional state affects your immune system, Mr. Harris. I need you to find a reason to fight. That night was the lowest point of my life. Betrayed by my wife, abandoned by my stepson, physically broken, and now facing the possibility of losing my leg. I stared into the darkness, wondering if Tara was right. Maybe it would be better to just die fast and be done with it all. I must have finally fallen asleep, because I dreamed of my grandfather, the one whose inheritance had bought the house Tara now shared with another man. In the dream, he sat beside my hospital bed, looking just as he had before cancer took him. You always were a giver, Rod, he said, his voice exactly as I remembered. But you forgot the most important thing I told you. What was that? I asked. Self-respect is not selfish. It is necessary. Without it, you have nothing to give that is truly yours. I woke with tears on my face, but something new in my chest. A spark of determination. My grandfather had been right. I had given everything without demanding respect in return. That ended now. The next morning, I asked Frank, the social worker, if he could arrange a legal consultation. 2 days later, a lawyer named Brian Kelly visited me in the hospital. He specialized in divorce cases involving injured spouses, particularly those with workers' compensation claims pending. Unfortunately, I see this more often than you would think, Brian said after I had explained my situation. Spouses abandoning partners after catastrophic injuries, especially when money is involved. The good news is that the law offers you significant protection. We spent 3 hours documenting everything from the financial evidence to Tara's abandonment during my medical crisis. Brian explained that as an injured spouse who had financially supported the family, I had very strong legal standing. Timing is crucial here, he advised. We need to file certain paperwork before you are discharged, while other actions should wait until the right strategic moment. Are you comfortable with a slightly more aggressive approach? For the first time since the accident, I felt a sense of control returning. I want everything that is legally mine, I said, and I want to make sure she cannot take anything more from me. With a legal plan in place, I turned my focus to physical recovery with renewed determination. The antibiotics started working against the infection, and my fever broke. Physical therapy was excruciating, but I threw myself into it completely. During these sessions, I met Tony, a veteran who had lost his leg in Afghanistan and was now learning to use a prosthetic. He became both a friend and an inspiration. You have got 2 options, Tony told me, during one particularly difficult therapy session. You can let this define you as a victim, or you can use it to redefine yourself as a survivor. There is no third option. Every day I set goals and tracked my progress. Small victories became stepping stones. Wiggling my toes, bending my knee 5 degrees further than yesterday, sitting up without assistance. Each achievement fed my determination. Dr. Patel noticed the change in me. Whatever you are doing mentally is helping your physical recovery, he said during rounds. Your latest scans show improved healing rates. I kept my plans mostly to myself, sharing details only with Elaine Bryan, the lawyer, and a small circle of hospital staff who had become my surrogate family. Amanda, the nurse, brought me homemade soup. Frank, the social worker, found me a laptop so I could start researching living arrangements for after discharge. Dr. Patel connected me with a former patient who owned a software company and needed remote technical writing. Help, something I could do even from a hospital bed. While my body healed, Brian put my legal countermove into action. I signed a power of attorney, giving him authority to act on my behalf. He filed court orders to freeze what remained of our joint assets. He documented the unauthorized use of my workers' compensation funds. He prepared divorce papers citing abandonment and financial misconduct. A former client from my construction days owned a small property management company. When he visited me in the hospital and heard my story, he offered me a job I could do remotely while recovering overseeing maintenance scheduling for his rental properties. "You always knew which subcontractors did the best work," he said. "I could use that knowledge, and you could use a fresh start." As my discharge date approached, the final pieces of my plan fell into place. The doctors wanted me to transfer to a rehab facility, but I had different ideas. My recovery had progressed enough that I could manage with outpatient therapy and some in-home help. Elaine had arranged for me to stay with her instead of returning to the house I had shared with Tara. What Tara did not know what she could not know, because she had never once visited or called the hospital to speak with my doctors, was that I was being discharged 2 weeks earlier than originally projected. This gave me the element of surprise I needed. The morning of my discharge, I signed the final paperwork with a strange sense of calm. 34 days after being crushed by a steel beam, I was leaving the hospital, a different man in every possible way. "Are you sure you want to do this against medical advice?" Dr. Patel asked, though I could tell he understood my reasons. "My body might benefit from 2 more weeks here," I said, "but my mind needs to move forward." Elaine arrived with her SUV, which she had adapted with a temporary ramp for my wheelchair. The plan was that I would use the chair for another few weeks, then graduate to walker, and eventually crutches as my strength returned. "Ready to start your new life?" she asked as an orderly helped me into the vehicle. I looked back at the hospital one last time. More than ready. Instead of heading to the house I had shared with Tara, we drove to Elaine's rental condo across town. She had transformed her spare bedroom into a first-floor recovery space for me, complete with hospital bed, bathroom, grab bars, and all the medical supplies I would need. While I settled in, my lawyer, Brian, was executing the next phase of our strategy. The court had approved an emergency order regarding our assets based on evidence of Tara's financial misconduct. Brian had hired a professional process server to deliver both this order and the divorce papers to Tara. What I had not told anyone except Elaine was my concern for Winston, our 3-year-old golden retriever. I had brought Winston home as a puppy, and he had been my loyal companion, often waiting up for me when I worked late. The thought of him alone with people who did not want him was unbearable. "Operation Dog Rescue is a go," Elaine said, checking her watch. "Your friend Kevin is heading over there now, while Tara's being served papers. She always takes Jake to basketball practice on Thursdays." Kevin had a key to the house from when he had watched Winston during our last vacation. The plan was simple. Get in, get the dog, and get out while Tara was away. It was not stealing, as Winston was legally my property, and the divorce filing included him specifically. But we needed to move quickly before Tara realized what was happening and tried to use him as leverage. An hour later, Kevin arrived at Elaine's place with a very excited Winston, who nearly knocked me out of my wheelchair trying to lick my face. "Easy, boy," I laughed, burying my face in his golden fur. "I missed you too." Over the next few days, Brian kept me updated on the legal proceedings. The judge had frozen the remaining assets and approved an expedited hearing due to the unusual circumstances. Tara had been forced to surrender the credit cards in my name. The mortgage company had been notified of the situation and would not process any changes without court approval. I spent my days adapting to my new routine. Physical therapy 3 times a week, remote work for a few hours each day, regular checks of my surgical wounds. Winston never left my side, seeming to understand that I needed him now more than ever. A week after my discharge, Elaine burst into my room, phone in hand. "You have got to see this," she said, pulling up a video. "Susan Jenkins just sent it to me." The video was from Susan's doorbell camera, showing a clear view of the house I had shared with Tara. In the footage, Tara stood on the front lawn screaming at a locksmith who appeared to be changing the locks. "What do you mean I cannot get in? This is my house," she yelled, her face contorted with rage. The locksmith calmly explained that he had court orders and could only take instruction from the property owner, which, according to his paperwork, was solely me. The house had been purchased with my inheritance money and had remained in my name, only a fact Tara had apparently forgotten or never known. As the reality of her situation sank and Tara's tantrum escalated, he took everything. Even the dog she screamed loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. 8 years of my life wasted on that pathetic man. The man behind her, presumably the owner of the red Audi that now sat in what used to be my driveway, looked uncomfortable and kept trying to get Tara to lower her voice. "Is this the life you promised me?" She turned on him. "You said we would be set once he was out of the picture." I turned away from the video, having seen enough. There was no satisfaction in watching her meltdown, only a sad confirmation that I had made the right decision. In the days that followed, I received a series of increasingly desperate texts from Jake. At first they were angry, accusing me of leaving them homeless, not true as Tara had family she could stay with. Then came the guilt trips about his school and activities. Finally, he asked if we could talk. I responded carefully with Brian's guidance. I told Jake that I would always care about him, that none of this was his fault, and that when he was ready for an honest conversation about what had happened, I would be here. I did not mention the affair, the financial theft, or his mother's cruel words to me in the hospital. Some truths he would need to discover on his own as he grew older. The court proceedings went entirely in my favor. The judge was particularly disturbed by the evidence of Tara's actions while I was hospitalized with life-threatening injuries. She was ordered to repay the money she had taken, though I knew I would likely never see most of it. The house was confirmed as my separate property. The divorce was granted on grounds of abandonment and financial misconduct. Most telling was what happened with Tara's boyfriend, the owner of the red Audi. According to Susan Jenkins, who had appointed herself my unofficial neighborhood intelligence agent, he disappeared as soon as it became clear there would be no financial windfall from my injury. Tara was left to move in with her sister in a neighboring town, her online business, now her only source of income. 3 months after my discharge from the hospital, a job opportunity arose in Denver with a larger property management company. The position offered better pay, advancement potential, and most importantly, a fresh start in a place without painful memories. "Are you sure you want to move that far?" Elaine asked when I told her. "You have still got a lot of recovery ahead of you." "That is exactly why I need to go," I said. "I need to be somewhere that does not remind me of who I was before. Somewhere I can focus completely on who I am becoming." With Brian's help, I sold the house, using part of the proceeds to repay Elaine for her support, and setting aside the rest for a fresh start. My new employer helped arrange an accessible apartment near the office for when I was ready to work on site. Physical therapy continued with progress that impressed even my doctors. 6 months after the accident, I graduated from wheelchair to walker. 2 months after that, I was using a single cane, and the doctors were optimistic that eventually I would walk unassisted, though, with a permanent limp. Winston adapted to our new life in Denver with the resilience only dogs possess. He became my unofficial therapy dog, forcing me to take short walks that gradually increased in length as my strength returned. On the days when pain and bad memories threatened to overwhelm me, his constant presence reminded me that not all loyalty is conditional. I found a therapist who specialized in trauma and betrayal. Dr. Sedin. Lydia Martinez helped me understand that my worth was never tied to what I could provide financially. She guided me through processing the anger and grief without letting it harden into bitterness. "The opposite of love is not hate," she told me during one session. "It is indifference. You will know you are truly healing when you can think of Tara and feel nothing at all." I joined a support group for people recovering from difficult divorces. Hearing others' stories helped put my own experience in perspective and created a sense of community in my new city. Through the group, I made friends who understood what I had been through without requiring lengthy explanations. Back in my hometown, I maintained appropriate boundaries with Jake. I never spoke ill of his mother, but I also never lied when he asked direct questions. When he turned 16 and wanted to visit me in Denver, I arranged for a plane ticket and spent a weekend showing him around the city. Our relationship was different now, more honest in some ways. He had seen his mother's true colors for himself over time. 1 year after the accident that changed everything, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment watching the sunrise over the Rocky Mountains. I could now walk with only occasional use of a cane. I had been promoted at work, I had friends, a home, and a future I was actually excited about. I thought back to those dark days in the hospital, when Tara's words had cut deeper than any physical pain. "You are not worth the gas money." How strange that such cruelty had ultimately set me free from a marriage that had been hollowing me out for years. In losing everything, I had discovered my true worth. Not as a provider or a paycheck, but as a person deserving of genuine love and respect. The journey had been excruciating both physically and emotionally, but I would not trade the clarity it had brought me. The most valuable lesson was learning the difference between giving from strength and giving from insecurity. I had spent years trying to earn love through sacrifice, never realizing that real love does not need to be purchased. As Winston nudged my hand with his nose ready for his morning walk, I smiled at the simple joy of this new life we had built together. Sometimes you need to lose everything to discover what is truly essential. And sometimes the greatest act of self-love is walking away from those who cannot see your worth. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that ultimately led you to a better place? How did you rebuild your life afterward? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming life's greatest challenges. Remember, your worth is never determined by those who fail to see it. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength on your own journey of self-discovery.